The lights of Jimmy Kimmel Live blaze down, sharp and hot over a packed studio audience. Their murmurs crackle like static, nervous energy before a storm. Across from Kimmel sits Clint Eastwood, Hollywood titan, face etched with the stories of 1,000 roles. At 90-something, he's still a force, still dangerous. Like a revolver that never quite got unloaded. Kimmel, slick in his suit and smirk, leans in, ready to banter, to charm. The audience expects nostalgia, maybe a Dirty Harry callback, a soft laugh. But something's off. It hums in the air, tension unnamed. Eastwood's here to promote a new film, a dark, uncompromising drama about a retired cop haunted by old choices. Not popcorn fluff, something heavier, something earned. Kimmel opens light, asks about the film's inspiration. Eastwood's voice slices through the noise, gravelly, low, sharp. He talks about truth, about how we've lost sight of it, how his film digs deep into the rot of human decisions. The audience quiets. Rapt, Kimmel sees his chance, goes for levity, a jab about Eastwood's age, something about still throwing punches while most men his age are choosing recliners. Laughter. But Eastwood doesn't smile. His eyes fix on Kimmel, steel behind the years. Kimmel either misses it or presses on anyway. Another joke, a stunt double, for walking. This time the laughter is thinner. Uneasy. Eastwood leans back. Silent. And somehow the silence speaks louder than anything so far. When he talks again, it's deliberate, measured. I didn't come here to be a punchline. He says he came to talk about the work, about what matters. The studio goes quiet, the kind of quiet that prickles your skin. Kimmel tries to recover, smile flickering like static. He pivots back to the movie, asks about the challenges of directing at this stage in Eastwood's career. But the mood has shifted. Eastwood's answers are shorter now, tense. He talks about betrayal, corruption, themes that feel too real in a world drowning in headlines. Then, Kimmel, maybe desperate now, brings up politics. It's a risk. Eastwood's known for his views. Kimmel's audience leans another way. He asks, half joking, if Eastwood's character would vote the way he does. It lands like a spark on dry brush. Eastwood's jaw sets. This isn't about politics, it's about people, about what's right when the system fails. Kimmel pushes again, asks if Eastwood's real beliefs bleed into the story. The audience stirs, sensing the shift. Something's unraveling. Eastwood doesn't flinch. Not yet. He leans in, voice steady but edged like a knife. I'm not here to preach, but I'm not afraid to call things what they are. The crowd breaks, half clapping, half murmuring. Kimmel stumbles, tries to pivot, but Eastwood isn't done. He talks about division, about how shows like this, fuel it for ratings. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. Every word hits like a punch to the ribs. The segment's running long. Producers wave behind the scenes. Kimmel cuts in, tries to rap, but Eastwood keeps going. You twist truth into punchlines, into sound bites, into entertainment. Now the audience is frozen. Even the laughter has died. No cues, no relief. Just raw, uncomfortable honesty. Kimmel, usually the one in control, sits there, grimace tight, smile gone. And Eastwood? He sits like a statue carved from something harder than stone. He didn't come to play. He came to say something, and he just did. Some nod, others glare, but no one looks away. The room is alive with the weight of every unspoken word. Kimmel's face is a mask of forced composure, his fingers gripping the desk so tightly his knuckles turn white. He tries to break the tension with a light-hearted quip, something to steer the ship back on course. But Eastwood doesn't even blink. He's locked in. The room feels smaller now, like the walls are inching closer, closing in on Kimmel's meticulously crafted world. The producers are in a frenzy. Signals come faster, more frantic. They're moments away from a commercial break, but this interview? It's a runaway train. Eastwood's not shouting, he doesn't need to. His words cut through the air, each one deliberate, steady, unyielding. He paints a grim picture of a fractured country, where people would rather score points than face hard truths. His finger doesn't point at Kimmel, but the gesture feels personal, like a quiet accusation. The problem isn't out there, he says, eyes sharp. It's right here, in places where people laugh at serious things because it's easier than thinking. The crowd reacts. Some cheer, others boo. Kimmel stands frozen, caught in the crossfire. His usual charm is useless now, a thin veneer, cracking under Eastwood's raw intensity. Finally, the break hits. The show cuts to commercials. The audience buzzes, excitement mixed with unease. Backstage, Kimmel's team huddles in tight circles, murmuring, urgent. They know this is bad in the way that trends online, spawning headlines and clicks. Eastwood remains in his chair, calm as ever, like nothing out of the ordinary just happened. A producer approaches him, smiles forced, suggesting they smooth things over before the next segment. Eastwood stares at him, one of those squinting glares that silence tougher men, and says flatly, "I'm not here to smooth anything." The producer recoils, backing off quickly. When the show resumes, Kimmel's back at his desk, but his smile is too wide, his voice too bright. He tries to reset, cracking a joke about how things got a little spicy. The crowd laughs, but it's hollow, empty. Eastwood's expression hasn't shifted, not a muscle. Kimmel steers the conversation toward safer ground, asking about Eastwood's early days in Hollywood, nostalgic waters he hopes to navigate. But Eastwood's not playing along. His answers are brief, clipped. His mind is somewhere else. Then, without warning, Eastwood circles back to where they left off. The problem with shows like this, he says, voice cutting through, is they pretend to care about truth, but only when it's convenient, when it fits the script. Kimmel's laugh is strained, forced. He tries to pivot again, bringing up a viral clip of Eastwood directing on set, hoping for something lighter, but Eastwood shuts it down immediately. "I'm not interested in viral moments. I'm interested in what's real." The crowd is on edge now, sensing the tension hasn't broken. Eastwood leans forward, voice quieter but no less piercing. He talks about responsibility, the weight of platforms like Kimmel's to do more than chase laughs. "The world's hurting," Eastwood says, "and instead of helping, too many just fan the flames." The crowd's response is louder now. Applause. Clashes with murmurs, some agreeing, others defensive. Kimmel can feel the ground shifting beneath him, and he knows it. He tries to interrupt, framing it as a friendly debate, but Eastwood's not debating. He's making statements. Every word lands like a hammer. The segment's clock is ticking down. The producers signal again to wrap, but Eastwood doesn't relent. He presses on. People hide behind humor to avoid accountability. The room gasps. Some cheer, some are stunned into silence. Kimmel's smile vanishes, his eyes darting to the control booth. He knows he has to end this, but Eastwood's next words push it past the point of no return. The studio lights feel harsher now, too bright, exposing every crack in the polished veneer of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Clint Eastwood's final words hang in the air. You hide behind humor to dodge accountability. The audience is a live wire. Some lean forward, others shift uncomfortably, all waiting for the next move. Kimmel's eyes flicker, panic barely contained beneath the surface. He struggles to hold his composure, trying to laugh it off. "Well, we've got a lively discussion tonight, but it's too late." The words sound hollow, empty. Eastwood's stare doesn't waver, and Kimmel knows he's lost control. The usual playbook has been thrown out the window. Charm and deflection are crumbling under the weight of a man who's built a career on cutting through the noise. Kimmel, desperate to regain control, turns to the audience, asking if they're enjoying the fireworks. A few cheer, but the response is scattered, too fragmented to give him any traction. The room feels like it's slipping out of his grasp. He pivots back to Eastwood, trying to steer the conversation toward a specific film scene. hoping to ground it in safer territory. But Eastwood's done with playing nice. He leans in, his voice low, almost a growl, and says he's tired of dancing around the real issue. He begins discussing the media's role in shaping public thought, how it picks sides, sells narratives instead of facts. He doesn't name Kimmel directly, but the implication lands with a sharp precision. The crowd feels it, murmurs growing louder, a mix of discomfort and curiosity. Kimmel tries to interject, framing it as a difference of opinion, but Eastwood cuts him off, not with volume but with laser-sharp precision. It's not about opinions, Eastwood says, his words slicing through the tension. It's about integrity, about owning the weight of your words when millions are watching. The room erupts. Some clap, others boo. The buzz fills the air. Kimmel is forced to raise his voice, trying to reassert control. "I respect your perspective," Kimmel says, his words shaky. "But let's agree to disagree and move on." It's a weak move, and Eastwood pounces. Agreeing to disagree, Eastwood says, is what people do when they're too scared to face the truth. The crowd's response is pure chaos now. A roar of approval clashes with dissent. Producers frantically signal for another break, but Eastwood's not backing down, and Kimmel's options are running thin. Desperate to steer the energy somewhere else, Kimmel mentions a celebrity guest waiting backstage. Eastwood ignores him, doubling down. He circles back to his film, but not for promotion. He sees it as a mirror to what's happening right here, right now. It's about a man who refuses to bend even when the world wants him to shut up, Eastwood says, the parallel impossible to miss. The audience eats it up, some shouting encouragement, others heckling. Kimmel's smile is now a grimace, his hands fidgeting with his cue cards, his grip tightening in frustration. Eastwood keeps going, pushing deeper. The problem isn't just talk shows. It's the whole machine, the one that rewards clicks over substance, that turns serious issues into late-night fodder. He's not preaching, he's dissecting. Every word feels like a direct hit to Kimmel's carefully constructed world. Kimmel tries one last time, asking if Eastwood's always been this intense, hoping for a personal anecdote to lighten the mood. But Eastwood's not biting. "Intensity is what you get," Eastwood says, his tone unwavering, "when you've seen enough lies to know better." The audience is on its feet now, some cheering wildly, others yelling back, and the studio feels like it's seconds away from boiling over. Kimmel's team is in full damage control mode. The producers signal to cut to commercial, but before they can, Eastwood drops his final bomb. He looks straight at Kimmel, his words like a thunderclap. "The real shame," Eastwood says, "is when someone with a platform chooses to play games instead of doing something that matters." The crowd explodes, a tidal wave of noise, and Kimmel's face goes pale. He stammers, trying to respond, but the segment ends abruptly, the screen cutting to black. Backstage, the fallout is immediate. The studio is plunged into darkness as the show cuts to commercial, but the energy in the room is electric, a storm that hasn't broken yet. Producers bark orders. Assistants scramble, and Kimmel's nowhere to be seen, likely holed up in his dressing room, reeling from Eastwood's verbal assault. The audience, still seated, is a cauldron of noise. Some chant Eastwood's name, others argue among themselves. Clint Eastwood sits calmly in the guest chair, untouched by the chaos. His face is unreadable but resolute, like a man who's just fired the last shot in a duel, certain he hit his mark. A senior producer, sweat staining his headset, approaches Eastwood, voice low but desperate. He asks if they can reset for the next segment, saying things got out of hand and they'd appreciate it if Eastwood could dial it back. Eastwood doesn't even turn his head. "I'm not the one who needs to reset," he says, his drawl cutting through the tension. The producer stammers, then retreats, knowing he's outmatched. Word spread fast, and backstage the storm is just beginning. Crew members are whispering in hushed tones about how this is the worst train wreck the show has ever seen. The chaos is already spreading online, clips of the clash circulating like wildfire. Phones in the audience are out, capturing every second. The internet is doing what it does best, fanning the flames. When the show returns from break, Kimmel is back at his desk, his face a strained mask of professionalism. But the audience? They're still restless, their energy crackling from the earlier confrontation. Kimmel tries to reset, introducing the next segment with a forced joke about needing a referee. It lands flat, the crowd too stirred up to play. Along Eastwood is still there, much to the producer's dismay. His presence is a silent challenge, a weight in the room that Kimmel avoids by focusing intently on the camera. The next guest, a pop star, enters, clearly unprepared for the electric tension. The singer tries to charm, but the audience's attention is locked on Eastwood, who remains a looming figure. Without warning, Eastwood interrupts, cutting through the pop star's bubbly anecdote with ease. "I'm not done," he says, his voice cutting through the noise. "If we're going to talk about what's wrong with the world, we might as well do it right." The crowd roars. Some cheer, others shout for him to stop. Kimmel, caught completely off guard, realizes his script is useless. He tries to mediate, raising his voice and reminding the audience that they've got a show to run. But Eastwood's not interested in being managed. He starts speaking about the stories in his film, about people who stand up when everyone else backs down. How that's what's missing today. His voice is steady, but there's a fire in it that makes the room hang on every word, whether they agree or not. The pop star looks lost, and the audience is now a cacophony of cheers and jeers. Kimmel, barely holding it together, tries to interrupt, but Eastwood presses on. "The real issue is people like Kimmel," he says, "who'd rather keep things shallow than face what's broken." The reaction from the crowd is deafening, split right, down the middle. The producers, now frantic, signal for security. Kimmel, pushed to his breaking point, snaps. "Eastwood's derailing the show," he yells. "He's a guest, not the host." It's a fatal mistake. Eastwood leans forward, his eyes like steel. "I'm not here to play by rules that protect cowards," he says, his words carrying over the uproar. The room erupts again, this time into full-blown chaos. People jump to their feet, some rushing toward the stage, others shouting, and security moves in. A team of burly guards in black is heading straight for Eastwood. Kimmel, shouting for calm, is drowned out by the noise. The studio is a powder keg seconds away from exploding. Eastwood doesn't flinch. As the security guards close in, his voice still carries above the madness. "I said what I came to say." The guards reach him, and what happens next throws the entire studio, and the internet, into a frenzy. The studio is a battlefield now. The air is thick with shouts, the chaotic surge of bodies pressing against each other. Security guards, broad-shouldered and stone-faced, surround Eastwood, hands hovering near his arms but not quite touching him. Even they hesitate to cross. A legend. The audience is a sea of motion. Some push toward the stage, phones raised to capture every moment, while others scream for order or cheer Eastwood on. Kimmel is on his feet, his voice cracking as he yells for everyone to calm down. But it's like shouting into a hurricane. Eastwood, still seated, seems untouched by the madness. His eyes are fixed on some distant point, the look of a man who's faced worse and walked away standing. One of the guards, the biggest of the bunch, leans in, his voice low. "It's time to go," he tells Eastwood. The crowd catches it, and the noise spikes. A mix of outrage and support fills the room. Eastwood doesn't move, doesn't even blink. Calm as ever, he responds, "I'll leave when I'm ready, not when you decide." The guard hesitates, thrown off by the steel in Eastwood's voice, but the producers are in his earpiece, barking orders to get him out now. Kimmel, now seeing the situation slip further, tries to play peacemaker. He steps toward Eastwood with his hands up, saying, "Nobody wants trouble. Let's just cool off." But his words are drowned out by the crowd, and Eastwood isn't listening anyway. Then, in a moment that feels like time freezes, Eastwood stands. The room seems to hold its breath. He's not as tall as he once was, not as broad, but his presence fills the space, unyielding. He looks at Kimmel, then at the guards, and speaks loud enough for the mics to catch it. "If you want me gone, you'll have to do it yourselves. But be ready for what comes after." The audience explodes. Some chant his name, others shout at security to back off. A few overzealous fans try to climb the stage, and security shifts to block them. A brief gap opens up around Clint Eastwood, creating a momentary calm before the storm. Kimmel's team is in full panic mode. The control booth is in a frenzy, filled with shouted instructions. The show is still live, cameras rolling, while the internet is already ablaze with clips, hashtags, and hot takes. Eastwood takes a step forward and the security guards tense up, unsure whether to intervene or let him walk. He doesn't acknowledge them, his movements slow and deliberate, like he's making his exit on his own terms. The crowd parts for him, some reaching out, others still filming. The air is thick with chaotic noise as voices overlap in a dissonant chorus. Kimmel, desperate to salvage the situation, rushes to the mic. He tries to spin it, claiming they'll be right back after a quick break, but no one is listening. As Eastwood approaches the stage's exit, he halts, turning to face Kimmel. The room quiets just enough for his voice to carry, and in that moment, the tension is palpable. "This is what happens when you push a man who's got nothing left to lose," he says, his words ringing with unspoken weight. "You and everyone like you should remember that. It's not a threat, but it lands like one." The audience roars again, some in awe, others in defiance. Security moves in to escort him out, but Eastwood shrugs them off, walking through the backstage curtain alone. The show cuts to commercial, but the damage is already done. The studio, once a controlled space, is now a powder keg that's already detonated. Backstage, the fallout is immediate. Producers are screaming into phones about lawsuits, ratings, and sponsors. Kimmel is holed up in his dressing room, shell-shocked, his team scrambling to figure out how to spin the disaster. Meanwhile, Eastwood is already at the studio's exit, his longtime assistant waiting with a car. The streets outside are buzzing, with fans and onlookers, some shouting his name, others holding up phones, their flashes slicing through the darkness. Eastwood doesn't acknowledge them. He simply leans back in the car, his face unreadable yet calm, like a man who said his piece and left the rest to burn. As the car pulls away, the studio behind him is still reeling, but out here, the story has already outgrown the stage it started on. Inside, Kimmel's team is in full crisis mode. The show limps through its final segments, but the pop star's performance and closing monologue feel like afterthoughts. The audience's energy is spent. Kimmel, trying to salvage something, cracks a weak joke about surviving tough guests. But the laughter is thin, the crowd distracted. Backstage, producers are on phones with network execs, their conversations a blur of damage control, lawsuits, PR strategies, and how to handle the viral storm that's already rewriting the narrative. Clips of Eastwood's words, his defiance, his stand against Kimmel, are everywhere, racking up millions of views and fueling debates across every platform. The internet is split just like the studio audience was. Some hail Eastwood as a hero, a truth-teller who exposed the shallowness of late-night TV. Others call him a bully, an old man picking a fight he didn't need to. Pundits seize the moment, spinning the clash to fit their agendas, while memes and reaction videos flood feeds. Eastwood's film, the very one he came to promote, is suddenly the hottest topic in town. Its themes of defiance and truth strike a chord with a world hungry for something real. Box office buzz spikes, and industry insiders whisper that this could be his biggest opening in years, all thanks to a fight nobody saw coming. Kimmel, meanwhile, faces a firestorm. His team pushes out a carefully worded statement, expressing respect for Eastwood's passion but regret for how heated the segment became. It does little to calm the storm. Critics pile on, some accusing Kimmel of baiting Eastwood, others saying he lost control of his own show. Fans defend him, arguing he was just doing his job, but the backlash is relentless. Talk shows across the dial dissect the moment, with hosts tiptoeing around whether to praise Eastwood or call him out. Kimmel's next episode sees a ratings bump, but it's bittersweet, the kind of attention that stings. Eastwood, for his part, stays silent. No interviews, no statements. He simply lets his actions speak for themselves. His assistant fields calls from reporters, studios, and even politicians, all wanting a piece of the story. But Eastwood is already back to work, back to the life he's always known, where the noise of the world doesn't matter as much as the work in front of him. His film's premiere is packed, the audience giving him a standing ovation before the credits even roll. Some say it's respect for his long career, while others say it's for what he did on that stage, standing up when most would have backed down. The clash becomes a cultural touchstone, a moment people will reference when discussing truth media and the cost of speaking your mind. For Kimmel, it's a scar, a reminder of what happens when you push a man like Eastwood too far. For Eastwood, it's just another chapter, one he wrote on his terms. The car is long gone now, disappearing into the city. But the echo of Eastwood's words lingers, a challenge to everyone watching to decide what they stand for when the lights come on. As the world keeps spinning, one thing's clear. Nobody's forgetting that night anytime soon.